Hola, estudiantes. Hello, students. Today we're going to be talking about the Spanish alphabet, or in Spanish, El Alfabeto de Español. And this is by Aaron Mounts, or if you want to call me by my Spanish name, Luis. So, first of all, I have a song for you guys that helped me remember the Spanish alphabet. So, I don't know if a lot of you know the military song, that's the I don't know what I've been told, but this is to the song of that. So, what you do is normally you have one person who knows the alphabet really well, so the person will, when it says repeat after it, will say it, and then the students will repeat after them. So, A, B, C, D, E, F, A, H, I, J, K, L, A, Y, M, A, N, A, N, Y, O, P, Q, R, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Yo sé el alfabeto. Ole! So that is the alphabet song that I learned in my last 2 years of Spanish when I had Mrs. Potter, but you guys now have Miss Simon. So you guys might learn something different, but this is the one I learned that helped me remember the alphabet. So let's move on. So in Spanish, we have, in almost all languages, you have vowels and then you have consonants. So first, let's talk about the vowels. So Spanish has the main 5 vowels that English does, as you see here, except for this one right here. However, we'll ignore that for right now. So first we have A, or as I said when I was singing, So uh, how you pronounce A is exactly how it is right here. It's A. So you have a word here, alto, which means tall in Spanish. And so the way you pronounce it is A and then to. So next we have E or E. And a word you can remember it by is estufa, and that means stove in Spanish. So you see here that it says E on the E. And then you have I, which is E. So you might get E and A confused or I and E confused if you're talking in English and going between English and Spanish. So the word I have here is invierno, which means winter. So as you can see here, it has 2 I's right here, and they're both pronounced E. Then next you have O, or it's the same in English and in Spanish, so it's more of a hard O, so you have O. So the word I have is ojo, which means eye, and as you see right here, it's ojo. And then you have U or U in Spanish, and so a good word to remember is uva or grape. You see it's U here. And this one you don't see very often at all. It's an U with 2 dots over it. The only word that I have seen my entire time speaking Spanish is the word pingüino, which means penguin. And I'll explain the double dots over the U when I get to a later slide. And then you have Y or E. It's pronounced the same as an I, or sometimes, depending on what country you're in, it might also be kind of a J sound. However, with Y's, you rarely hear it with a Y. So, and here I have E, which is and in Spanish, and you can see it sounds like E. So next we have our consonants. So I went over these as well. So I'll be going over here. So you have B or B, and then you have the letter is called se, like we say C in Spanish, but it actually has a hard and a soft. So um, you have a C that's hard, so as in carro or car in English, and then you have a soft sound as in cielo. So a C has a soft sound following or when it's followed by an E or an I. And then you have CH, which technically in Spanish is its own. Um, it's its own technically a letter, and so you see this. You see this quite often. And you have D or de, and then you have F or F is the letter name. Some of these names in Spanish are kind of weird for the letters. And then you have G, so you have hey, and it's like in English again where it's kind of a soft, you call it a G even though it has a G sound when it's a hard. So you see this quite often where it has a soft sound where it sounds more like a H sound. And then you will also see it hard, so it kind of depends on where it is. So again, it is soft when it is followed by an E or an I. Then you have H or H, So with H in Spanish, you see H quite often in front of words. However, H is always silent no matter what. So words like hablo, you don't say hablo, you say hablo. And then to make up for that kind of loss of H sound, you have J, which is called jota. So you see this in quite a few places, and so you don't want to say a j sound, you want to say a H sound. Then you have K, which is ka, so it's similar to a hard C. And then you have one singular L, which is ele, and then you have two L's, which is eye. So what happens with two L's is it makes a Y sound, or depending again where you're at, it might make a J sound. It depends on the particular accent of where you're speaking. So in Costa Rica and Nicaragua, I remember you didn't say me llamo, you said me llamo. So it kind of depends on where you're at. But for people who are first learning it, I would suggest to stick to the yes sound and you'll be understood almost all places. So then you have M, so you have MA, and then you have N, which is NA, and then you have an N with this little squiggly line, and that little squiggly line is called a tilde. And there's a very important reason when you're using this kind of N and words, because you have a word like año, which means year. But if you forget to use that tilde or you say ano, that is basically something kind of inappropriate that you're not supposed to say in school. So you want to make sure you have that squiggly line, otherwise you'll offend somebody. And then you have P or P, then you have a Q or a Q, and I'll explain a Q and other vowels pretty soon. Then you have an R, just one singular R, and that's R. So when you do that, you want to flip your R, and that's different than going R. You want to just do a small flip of your tongue, which some people might have trouble doing that. So my recommendation, if you can't roll your R's, try to say a D right after you say the R, so R, so you can kind of hear it. And it's important to flip your R's in Spanish. And then you have this double R, which then it is okay to roll the R, which is where you do it a bunch of times. So you do R. And then you have S, which is ese, then you have T, which is te, then you have V, which is ve, and then you have W, which we call W, but in Spanish they call it doble V. So it's just two V's stick together. And it has a W sound as well. Then you have X, which is X, and it has a varying different pronunciations. Sometimes you heard it as a kind of a K or a X sound, but other times, as in like when you say Mexico in Spanish, you say Mexico. So it can be a very different degree of pronunciations, and you have se or ze. However, in Spanish, it is more similar to an S sound. You don't say ze, you say se. It sounds like an S. So next we have vowels and diphthongs and other things like that. So when you're doing, I'm sure you have heard of vosotros or the y'all, basically, of Spanish. So you use these first two in that when you're using that, we're talking about y'all, basically. So you have ice. So the way A and I go together, you say both vowels. You don't say ace. You say ais, but you want it together. So notice there is a little accent over here, and accents are also very important. I'll explain that in a little bit. So you go ice, and then you have an e and an I, and it has that accent over the e again. So you put the stress there, and so it's ace. And so you say both of the vowels, and then you have right here, you have an I with an accent, then an O, then an N, and that's eon. And then you have A and U, and that's ow. So I kind of put it here, and it's kind of hard to see, but it's kind of like, imagine saying ow. Like you get hurt, you say ow. However, it's more of an ow. So you want to put more of an ah in front of it instead of an ah. So that's a good way to remember that. And then another one I don't have here is an O and then a U, then an E. And the way a word you'll see this in is the word for west in Spanish, which is oeste. So it kind of sounds like a W sound. Now next we have some irregular and confusing things. So you have your hard C and then you have your soft C. So a hard C again is a K sound, so like carro. And then you have your soft sound like cielo. Then you have your hard G versus your soft G, so you have a G sound as opposed to a H sound. And then your H is always silent no matter what. You never say the H. You don't want to say hablo or hola. You say hola or hablo. And then your J sounds like an H. You don't want to make it sound like a J sound. Then you have your double L or your Y. So remember, you want to say llamo or llamo, not lamo, because when you say me llamo, it sounds like you're saying my llama, when actually you're saying I am called, or I call myself specifically. Then you have your N with this little squiggly line called the tilde, and that's very important because if you forget the tilde, you'll offend somebody. Then you have your S and Z sounding the exact same. So down here I have a couple words, and I'm sure you've heard of them. Um, so the word for what in Spanish is que. Now, when you see it, you think, well, he just taught me that U and E go together, so I should say que. However, in this specific instances with QU and GU, it actually makes it kind of a harder sound. So you have this QUE, which is pronounced K, and then this QUI, which is pronounced Ki. And then down here you have GUE, which is kind of follows the same, except instead of a K sound, it has a G sound in front of it. So you have ge and then gi. And then lastly, I have the sentence. So first I'm going to read it in a American accent with pronouncing the letters wrong and stuff like that, and then I'll read it in the way you're supposed to actually say it. Okay, so first I'm going to read it in an American accent, and then lastly I'm going to read it in a Spanish accent and then translate it for you. So first you have, Hola Julio, ¿sabes que necesitas hablar en español con una pronunciación apropiado? So obviously that kind of sounds really southern, and well, I kind of over-exaggerated. You don't want to be sounding like a white girl or like Peggy Hill while speaking Spanish. So next I'm going to read it in the proper Spanish pronunciation. So you have, Hola Julio, ¿sabes que necesitas hablar en español con una pronunciación apropiado? So that basically translates to, Hello Julio, did you know that you need to speak in Spanish with a appropriate pronunciation? So that is it for my video today. I hope that all of you children who are starting Spanish learn something from this, learn how to be able to speak Spanish, not like a white girl who thinks she knows everything. So I hope you learned a lot, and thank you.